Imagine a quiet village in rural Japan. It's late afternoon.
Right. And the only sound you hear is that rhythmic chime from the 5x0 p.m. town speaker.
Exactly. And everywhere you look, you see IKEA abandoned ghostly shells with these sagging roofs. Half the houses are empty.
And the average age of the people who are still there is, what, 75?
55. Then a sleek black taxi pulls up, and a 29-year-old developer from Austin steps out, clutching a high-end laptop and a 6-month visa.
On paper, this is the solution. This is the savior.
He is. He brings that required $10 million salary with him, which is this high-definition filter that ensures only the global elite are even on that train.
And he's there for the big grand opening, right? The 2026 plan to breathe life into these dying towns.
He looks at those abandoned houses, and he sees a trendy co-working space. He looks at the empty streets and sees a blank canvas for digital innovation.
Yeah.
But then he starts to notice things.
The unsettling details.
The local shopkeeper is polite, of course, even bowing, but the conversation just never goes deeper than the price of a rice ball.
And when he tries to join in, like a community cleanup or something,
he's met with these confused smiles and a very firm, very quiet redirection. He starts to realize he's been invited to spend his Silicon Valley salary, but he hasn't been invited to belong.
And this is the disconnect we've been watching for years. The world sees Japan's demographic decline and just assumes this big opening is inevitable.
We all saw the headlines, the digital nomad visa. We thought, finally, the fortress is crumbling.
But when you actually look at the architecture of this policy, you realize it's not an invitation at all. It's a masterclass in what we're calling defensive modernization.
It's a high-tech firewall. They've built this system that treats foreigners like human software updates.
That's the perfect metaphor. You're expected to plug in, upload your capital, and then, and this is the key part, before you can leave a single permanent mark on the cultural operating system, you delete yourself and go home.
It really raises a chilling question. Can a nation actually survive by treating people as just temporary transactions? Or is this elegant decline just a slow-motion act of civilizational disappearance?
That opening narrative, it defines the core tension here perfectly. This isn't a true opening in the way other countries have done it. It is absolutely a masterclass in defensive modernization.
Right.
Japan has engineered a system where the foreign professional is fundamentally viewed as a temporary economic input, a necessary human software update. The entire mechanism is designed to let them upload their capital, their spending power.
And then get out.
And then, by bureaucratic design, they have to delete themselves before they can cause any permanent, potentially disruptive cultural impact on the communities they visit.
Okay, let's unpack this architecture, because the level of strategic planning here it's just stunning. We're going to dive into the explicit legal mechanisms of this new digital nomad visa, the economic crisis driving it, and the on-the-ground reality of local resistance.
And the deep cultural beliefs that are underpinning this entire strategy.
So our mission today is to follow the money, then the bureaucracy, and finally the culture. We want to understand what economic need this policy fills, what the locals truly fear, and what cultural framework is driving this very selective, very temporary path to modernization. So when the news of this visa broke globally, the excitement was palpable. It seemed like a sign that Japan's famously rigid immigration policies were finally relaxing.
But that's the surface read. Once you look beneath the headlines, the policy reveals itself to be less of an invitation and more of a highly specific transaction.
So let's start with the formalities. What did that March 31st, 2024 policy launch actually entail, legally speaking?
Well, formally, this new status is an expansion of something they call the designated activity status. It's under their Immigration Control Act.
And designated activities is sort of a catch-all category.
Exactly. It's a framework they use for specific temporary allowances. It's pointedly not a permanent immigration pathway. The Ministry of Justice just defined a new activity. Digital nomads can reside and work remotely.
Okay, and what's the official justification, the government's line?
It's explicitly economic. If you look at their 2023 Grand Design and Action Plan for a New Form of Capitalism, the goals are crystal clear. They want to attract international remote workers for, and I'm quoting here, positive economic effects.
Which they define as?
Increase local consumption, a boost in tourism, and promoting innovation through brief exchanges with Japanese workers. It's a pragmatic response to a shrinking tax base.
It sounds like a generic pitch any country would make.
Well,
but the real innovation, the absolute centerpiece of this whole thing, is that salary floor. Let's really dig into the 10 million income filter. What's the exact requirement?
The requirement is stringent. You have to prove an annual income of at least JPY 10 million at the time you apply.
Which is roughly what in US dollars? It fluctuates.
It does, but right now it's hovering around $68,000 USD, and that number is incredibly strategic when you put it in the Japanese context.
Oh, so
The average annual pay in Japan, depending on where you are and what you do, is somewhere between $41,000 and $45,000. So they set the requirement at almost double the average national wage.
wow. So that's the high-tech filter you were talking about. The 10 million isn't just about spending money into the country. It's a
Quality engineering. They're targeting a very specific, wealthy class of professional.
So it's not just about bringing in capital.
No, it's about filtering out potential long-term social liabilities. The government is signaling very clearly that they only want the self-sufficient professional class. People whose high earnings mean they are extremely unlikely to ever need or seek out Japan's social safety nets.
Housing support, welfare, any of it.
None of it. It's a strategy that captures capital while insulating their domestic social contract from the perceived risks of broader, less selective immigration. It's getting the benefits of global mobility without the social costs.
And this capital capture is reinforced by rules about who they can work for, right? They're basically blocked from the local labor market.
That is a non-negotiable part of the firewall. DN visa holders are strictly prohibited from working on an employment contract with any Japanese organization, public or private.
Their income has to be foreign.
Exclusively. It has to come from organizations established in foreign countries, or they have to be selling goods or services to people entirely outside of Japan. This rule ensures they're bringing external money in, not taking domestic jobs out.
Right. It eliminates any direct competition with local labor, which must be a huge concern in an already strained system.
It's a primary concern.
Now let's talk about something that often gets overlooked, but it feels like the real genius of the financial insulation strategy. Linking the visa only to countries with existing tax treaties.
Yes. This is where the policy architecture really shines.
There are 49 eligible countries. Why is this so vital?
It's subtle but brilliant. Most of Japan's tax treaties are designed to prevent double taxation, and they often include a specific clause for temporary workers, usually citing the 183-day rule.
Okay, break that down for us.
The principle is this. If a foreign worker stays in Japan for less than 183 days in a fiscal year, their income is taxable only in their home country. That's provided they're paid by a foreign company and the cost isn't borne by a permanent Japanese establishment.
So by setting the visa limit at 6 months, 180 days, and requiring the applicant to be from a tax treaty country, they're basically ensuring the person's high income gets spent locally.
Stimulating the economy.
But that income itself almost never touches the complex Japanese tax base.
Exactly. They successfully extract foreign capital. The Nomad spends thousands on tourism, food, high-end rentals, without the fiscal entanglement of integrating that person into the domestic tax and social security system. It is pure, frictionless capital capture.
And beyond the money, there's this practical daily friction that seems almost intentional. The temporary status itself creates these huge logistical hurdles.
This is the secondary filter, and it's highly effective. The stay is limited to 180 days within a year. You can't renew it consecutively.
You have to leave.
You have to physically leave Japan for 6 months before you can even think about reapplying. For a true digital nomad who needs continuity, that stop-start system is a major deterrent.
And I imagine the lack of core residency credentials makes just living a normal life almost impossible. What's the impact of not having a residency card, a ZERU card, or an individual number?
It creates huge practical barriers.
Yeah.
Simple tasks become these frustrating multi-day bureaucratic quests. The ZERU card is the key to almost everything in modern Japanese life for a non-citizen.
So without it?
Without it, or an individual number, getting a traditional long-term apartment lease is virtually impossible. That forces you into expensive short-term options, like service departments.
Which again keeps the spending high value and temporary.
It does, and basic things. Opening a proper bank account usually requires a ZERU. Getting a local phone number, a gym membership, certain utility services, all of it relies on those credentials. This lack of integration tools is a structural barrier. It's a bureaucratic message that says, we welcome your spending, but we do not facilitate your settling.
So when you stack this up against the global competition for digital nomads, how does it compare? You hear the phrase, too short to be worthwhile. a lot.
It's highly restrictive. I mean, look at Taiwan's Gold Card visa. It allows for stays up to 3 years, it's renewable, and critically, you can sponsor dependents to join you.
So Taiwan is offering a path to, a deep multi-year contribution.
They are. Or look at Dubai. They offer a 1-year remote work visa and, for many people, a zero personal income tax environment. The economic benefit there is immediate and substantial.
And Japan's visa gives you a maximum of 180 days with a high cost of living while demanding you earn twice the average salary.
Precisely. For people from, say, the US or the UK who already get 90 days visa-free, this new visa just formalizes their ability to work remotely and adds 3 more months. And in exchange, they get the headache of proving a massive income.
So it really only appeals to a very specific niche.
It appeals to high-earning, first-world citizens who see Japan as a novel, safe place to spend a lot of money for a short time. Not a place to build a life or a business. It is optimized for capital capture, not for demographic change.
And this intense focus on short-term spending is supposed to revitalize the regional economy, especially those rural areas full of the IKEA we talked about. Let's quantify the scale of the demographic crisis that created this vacuum in the first place.
The crisis is an anchor on the entire economy. I mean, Japan's population has been shrinking relentlessly since 2009. They've lost well over 5 million people in just the last decade and a half.
And the fertility rate is terrifyingly low.
It's estimated at 1.15. The population isn't just aging, it's rapidly shrinking. You have this severely inverted population pyramid.
The median age is almost 50 now, isn't it?
Close to 50, one of the oldest in the developed world. This isn't a slow drift, it's a structural collapse of the younger generation needed to support the elderly.
And you can see that collapse in the landscape with the IKEA phenomenon.
Exactly. Rural desertification is accelerating. The term IKEA, vacant houses, it's central to the national conversation now. There are millions of them across the country.
And local governments are desperate.
They're facing financial ruin. They see digital nomads as potential buyers for these incredibly cheap IKEA. You can sometimes get one for as little as $20,000 US.
But they always need a ton of work.
Almost always. Extensive renovation, repair, and the often difficult task of emptying out decades of junk left behind.
The economic logic seems sound, though. Bring in high earners, they spend money, they buy cheap houses, fix them up, and breathe life into dying towns. But the research, especially the ethnographic fieldwork, suggests that when these professionals actually show up, they hit a wall of local resistance.
And that's the core of the IKEA paradox. The economic need is undeniable, but the social resistance often just overrides it.
What does that resistance look like on the ground?
Studies in rural areas like parts of Kochi Prefecture show local residents are deeply pessimistic about being repopulated by these high-mobility newcomers. Their main worry isn't about the money.
It's about culture.
It's about their potential failure to integrate into the existing, tightly woven social expectations of the community. They fear the loss of social cohesion more than they fear the loss of economic vitality.
So the core concern is that nonconformity, the individualistic lifestyle of a digital nomad, could lead to the breakdown of structures of responsibility and care.
That's the phrase, yes. These are tight-knit, multi-generational systems built on mutual aid. The locals feel very intensely that newcomers must prioritize preserving local identities, values, and customs. They want revitalization, but only on their terms.
And only if the new person assimilates completely into the existing social code.
Right. And that resistance leads us straight to this concept of cultural immunology viewing Japan's social framework as a highly developed collective defense mechanism.
How does that system work against, say, an unintegrated individual?
It's a powerful way to look at it. If you see their combination of customs, ethics, and law as a collective immune system, its job is to maintain stability by defending against what it perceives as pathogens, unintegrated individuals, or foreign influences.
And this is fundamentally different from Western models.
Completely. Western cultures are often built on individual immunology, self-protection, independence, the resilient self. Japanese society prioritizes a kind of hierarchical social mutualism, a symbiosis where individual needs are often subordinated to group stability.
So individual expression has to conform to the group's external requirements to maintain harmony.
Fundamentally. In this system, your internal world, your honoring, your true feelings and thoughts, is strictly subordinated to the external code, the teitmei. That's the conventionalized public behavior you're expected to show. The ultimate goal is social harmony, or wa.
And the digital nomad is often trained in a system that values the opposite. that values Han authenticity, sharing your feelings.
And the moment that private reality, the Han, breaches the public facade, the taipei, in a disruptive way, the social body registers a potential threat to the entire system.
And this collective immune system is maintained through rituals, codes of conduct that are embedded from a very young age.
Absolutely. The constraining is pervasive. I mean, look at uniforms. Roughly 95% of high schools use them. It's not just a dress code, it's an early lesson in assimilation and conformity.
The lack of individual clothing means a lack of bodily individuality.
It symbolizes a reduction of the self to a standardized, ritualized group member. Or think about bowing. Westerners often see it as subservience.
But it's not personal.
In Japan, it's a complex multi-stage ritual that is so formalized it's not personal at all. It's just flawlessly fulfilling a social role, confirming you understand the system and the hierarchy of the relationship.
So behavior is less about expressing your personality and more about performing the role required by the societal script.
That is spot on. Take social responsibility in those rural towns. A DN sees a shared office. The community sees the need to participate in joint responsibilities.
Like what?
Like the hyper-specific, multi-stage garbage sorting rituals. If you fail to do that right, it's a failure of care. It means participating in the neighborhood watch, or in these older communities, taking a turn in disaster preparedness drills, even firefighting drills.
A high-mobility person who isn't invested long-term is structurally incapable of fulfilling those roles.
Exactly. And their refusal, even a polite omission, is registered by the collective immune system as a failure of mutualism, as a threat.
What about the famous Japanese smile? We often read it as welcoming, but you suggest it's actually another tool of cultural insulation.
Anthropologically, it's often called a double veil. It serves two functions. Internally, it's a tool for rigorous emotional control. Externally, it's a shield, protecting you from the raw, potentially disruptive emotions of others.
It communicates convention, not personal warmth.
Correct. It's a commitment to convention. When someone is receiving criticism or being deflected, that smile often gets wider. It's an expression of acceptance of the social reality, a customary way to preempt shame or direct confrontation. It's a key tool for maintaining that impenetrable layer of external consistency.
That explains the developer in our opening story. Trying to join the cleanup, he gets confused smiles and a firm, quiet redirection. He was trying to bypass the system.
He was, and the community's defense mechanism deployed instantly. Not aggressively, but definitively. He was trying to skip a complex, multi-layered assimilation process. The cultural system views the body, behavior, everything through these strict, ritualized lenses built up over centuries.
So the rigidity you find in these small towns isn't just arbitrary tradition.
Not at all. It's the external manifestation of centuries of ethical systems designed to keep the collective harmonious and structurally sound. Any threat to the taipei is instinctively registered as a pathogen attacking the socio-cultural body. For the Japanese, the meaning of existence traditionally comes from settling down, mastering the customs, and renewing cultural patterns. This constant renewal is the essence of their society.
It's what provides the immunity.
Precisely. And the structural tension for the digital nomad is insurmountable. The state wants their money for 180 days, but the local populace, governed by this profound, rigid immune system, doesn't want the risk of an unintegrated person changing their programming. They prefer the stability of decline over the risk of change.
Okay, let's tie this back directly to the policy. If the bureaucratic filters handle the money, and the cultural immune system handles the local rejection, then the ultimate mechanism for cultural preservation has to be that 6-month cap.
It is.
How should we read that 180-day limit, not just as an immigration rule, but as a deliberate, powerful cultural policy?
The 6-month cap is the definitive declaration that foreigners are temporary economic inputs and never potential permanent social members. The policy is designed to facilitate financial transactions.
High salary spent on tourism, consumption, temporary housing.
While simultaneously, legally, preventing them from establishing the kind of local footprint required for long-term integration or meaningful influence, it ensures the DN is always operating as an outsider.
This sounds less like immigration policy and more like boundary maintenance. The transactional nature is the entire point.
That is the policy objective, distilled. The visa maximizes capital capture, the economic benefit, while ensuring the cultural risk of permanent settlement is mitigated. By cycling nomads out every 6 months, the integrity of the socio-cultural body is maintained.
No single individual can stay long enough to become embedded, to learn the deep customs, or to influence local norms.
It's a policy that trades the potential vitality of demographic change for the guaranteed stability of cultural stasis.
Which brings us to this really profound question about Japan's societal destiny. The West is constantly obsessed with the need for population growth to sustain pensions and GDP. But is there a strong segment of Japanese society that's actively questioning if that's necessary? If maybe there's a different path?
Well, absolutely. A significant segment of Japanese society, and many prominent analysts, openly question the relevance of continuous hypergrowth capitalism, especially the global obsession with chasing higher GDP numbers.
Their argument being?
Their argument is that Japan has already achieved a high standard of living, high social trust, exceptionally low crime rates, and world-class infrastructure. They're asking, if we've reached a good, stable state, why risk disrupting it all just to chase some arbitrary growth metric?
So instead of seeing population decline as this unmitigated disaster that has to be solved by mass immigration, they see a choice between cultural integrity and economic expansion.
Precisely. There's a quiet but profound preference among certain demographics for what they call managed decline or graceful demographic decay. They prioritize that over trying to implement a Western melting pot model.
The calculation is that protecting Japan against multiculturalism is a higher priority.
A much higher priority than maintaining an unrealistic or unaffordable version of the welfare state from decades ago. They would rather have an efficient, stable, culturally homogeneous system, even if it's a smaller system, than an unstable, sprawling, multicultural one.
And this preference for insularity, for preservation over growth, has deep historical roots. It echoes back to the Sakoku policy.
The connection to Sakoku, the period of national isolation, is not accidental. It is a template for this current policy of defensive modernization.
And Sakoku was what, over 2 centuries?
It was rigorously enforced from the 1630s until 1853. Over 200 years. It was the ultimate intense form of collective immunology directed outward. And the main driver wasn't just trade, it was protecting political and cultural stability from the influence of Christianity and foreign powers.
So how does the DN visa restriction specifically parallel that policy?
The parallel is in the intense control over who enters and under what terms. During Sakoku, the isolation was almost total, except for highly controlled trade with the Dutch at the Jima. The modern echo is in this visa's design. The extremely high income requirement, the short duration, the absolute prohibition on long-term integration.
Japan is saying, we'll engage in limited, highly structured transactions for our economic benefit.
But we will rigorously exclude all risks of permanent cultural influence. The modern DN policy is a digitally optimized, economically liberalized, but fundamentally Sakoku-aligned approach to the outside world.
Looking at the actual experience of foreigners who have tried to live in Japan long-term, beyond just being a tourist, what do we see? How successful is this cultural immunology?
The reports are remarkably consistent. Long-term residents and DNs, they all praise the country's safety, the cleanliness, the incredible efficiency of the infrastructure, but they frequently report immense difficulty socializing and forming deep long-term friendships. The society is often described as isolated from foreigners, and many report feeling very, very alone. The politeness is there, it's even profound, but it's often impenetrable. It's a tape-made shield that prevents the real deeper connection of Hun.
And the language barrier must amplify that cultural insulation 1,000 times over.
It acts as one of the most effective passive filters they have. The level of English proficiency is reported to be quite low, even in major hubs like Tokyo and Osaka. And more tellingly, there's often little perceived willingness or care to understand or learn it among many locals.
Which is a crucial point.
It is. If spontaneous communication is functionally difficult, then spontaneous cultural exchange and deep integration are structurally stifled. The culture maintains its separateness simply by requiring adherence to its own linguistic norms, ensuring that most foreigners remain exactly what the visa intended them to be: temporary, transactional visitors. So when we synthesize all these findings, Japan's digital nomad visa is revealed as this crystal clear articulation of defensive modernization. It is a highly sophisticated, highly selective financial welcome mat with that 10 million salary in the tax insulation, coupled with an exceptionally rigid cultural bouncer.
A bouncer manifested in the 6-month clock and the systemic denial of basic residency tools.
Right. This policy ensures the maximum possible capture of high-value capital, while that ticking clock limits the potential for any deep, transformative cultural integration. The fundamental goal is economic survival, but on highly controlled, purely transactional terms.
The nation has devised an elegant system to survive the immediate economic pressures of demographic collapse by monetizing a high-earning, temporary foreign population. But this system inherently risks creating an elegant decline, a slow-motion civilizational disappearance, by refusing the demographic change necessary for long-term replenishment. It is trading the potential vitality and dynamism of long-term integration for guaranteed cultural stasis. The fundamental challenge remains. Maintaining a highly structured society requires constant input and maintenance from those who are deeply integrated into its systems of care and responsibility. It remains to be seen how long a society can operate almost entirely on temporary financial transactions before those internal social systems ultimately fail under the inexorable weight of structural decline.